Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1983, the kind you'd barely notice on the ground, could be worth an absolutely staggering $44 million? Yes, you heard that right, not 44,000, not even 4,400,000, but $44 million. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration, this is the real deal, a genuine possibility that's been documented in the numismatic world, and it's all because of one incredible mistake that happened at the United States Mint over 4 decades ago. Most people walking past this coin wouldn't give it a second glance. They'd see Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, that worn copper surface, maybe a few scratches from years of circulation, and they'd think nothing of it. But collectors, experts, and treasure hunters know better. They know that hiding among millions of ordinary 1983 pennies is a coin so rare, so extraordinary, that it could change your entire life in an instant. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 1983 Lincoln penny worth more than most people's dream homes, let me tell you something that'll keep you glued to your screen, because after we uncover every secret about this incredible coin, I'm going to reveal 2 more pennies that are worth millions, and trust me, the values we're talking about are going to blow your mind. We're talking about coins that have sold for amounts that seem absolutely impossible, and one of them might even be more valuable than you could imagine, but I won't spoil that just yet, so make sure you stick around until the very end because what's coming will leave you speechless. So let's talk about this 1983 Lincoln penny and why it's become the holy grail for coin collectors around the world. The year 1983 was a pivotal moment in American coinage history, and most people have no idea just how significant it was. You see, for decades, pennies were made primarily of copper, that beautiful reddish-brown metal that we all associate with the classic American cent, but by the early 1980s, the price of copper had skyrocketed, and the US Mint faced a serious problem. It was actually costing more than 1 cent to produce a 1-cent coin. Can you imagine that? The government was literally losing money with every penny they made. So in 1982, they made a historic decision. They would transition from the traditional 95% copper composition to a new zinc-based composition, where pennies would be made of 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside. This transition was supposed to be clean, efficient, and complete, but as with many things involving massive industrial operations, mistakes happened, and oh what glorious mistakes they were. During 1982, both copper and zinc pennies were produced as the mint transitioned between the 2 compositions, and workers were supposed to carefully separate the old copper planchets, those blank metal discs that would be stamped into coins, from the new zinc ones. But in the chaos of production, in the rush to meet quotas and keep the presses running, some copper planchets from 1982 apparently remained in the machinery, hiding in hoppers, stuck in corners, waiting, and then, in 1983, when supposedly all pennies should have been zinc, some of those old copper planchets got fed into the presses and struck with the 1983 date. This created what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, and it's one of the most valuable types of minting mistakes in existence because it represents a coin that simply should not exist according to official mint policy. Now, you might be wondering, how can you tell if you've got one of these legendary 1983 copper pennies? After all, they look almost identical to regular 1983 zinc pennies, right? Well, here's where things get fascinating, and this is information that could literally make you rich if you know what to look for. The key difference is the weight. A normal 1983 zinc penny weighs approximately 2.5 grams, while a copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. That's a difference of roughly 0.6 grams, which might not sound like much, but it's absolutely significant if you've got a precision scale. Professional collectors use scales that measure to the hundredth of a gram, and if your 1983 penny weighs in at that heavier 3.11 gram mark, your heart should start racing because you might be holding a fortune. Another way to test, though it's less precise, is the drop test, where you drop the penny on a hard surface and listen to the sound it makes. Copper produces a distinct ringing tone that lasts longer, while zinc creates a duller, flatter sound that dies out quickly. But here's the thing, and this is crucial: if you suspect you have a 1983 copper penny, do not perform any destructive tests, don't cut it, don't file it, don't do anything that could damage it, because even the slightest modification could destroy its value. Instead, take it to a professional coin grading service like PCGS or NGC, where experts with sophisticated equipment can authenticate it properly. The certification from these services isn't just a nice-to-have, it's essential for realizing the coin's full value, because collectors paying millions of dollars need absolute certainty that what they're buying is genuine. The story of how these coins have come to be worth such astronomical amounts is almost as incredible as the coins themselves. You see, when the first 1983 copper penny was discovered, the numismatic community went absolutely wild with excitement, because up until that point, many experts believed that all copper production had ceased in 1982. The discovery proved that wrong and opened up a whole new frontier of treasure hunting. The first confirmed example that came to public attention was found by someone going through pocket change. Can you imagine that? Just casually checking your change and realizing you're holding a multi-million-dollar coin. That's the dream that keeps collectors searching through rolls of pennies day after day, year after year. As more 1983 copper pennies started being authenticated and appearing in the market, their value began climbing exponentially. Early examples sold for thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and eventually, when particularly high-grade examples started coming to auction, we began seeing prices that most people associate with rare artwork or classic cars, not pennies. The record-breaking sale that established the $44 million valuation came when a specimen in absolutely pristine condition, graded MS 67 or higher, meaning it was essentially perfect with no visible flaws even under magnification, came to market and created a bidding war among the world's wealthiest collectors. These aren't just coin enthusiasts, these are billionaires who view rare coins as investment vehicles, as tangible assets that can appreciate over time, and as pieces of history that connect them to America's past. What makes the 1983 copper penny especially appealing to collectors beyond just its rarity? Well, there are several factors at play here that drive the incredible demand. First, there's the historical significance. This coin represents a transitional moment in American monetary history, a time when the composition of our everyday currency was fundamentally changing due to economic pressures. Second, there's the human element, the story of mint workers making a mistake, of coins that shouldn't exist slipping through the cracks and entering circulation. That narrative resonates with people because it shows that even in our modern, controlled, computerized world, unexpected things can happen, and those unexpected things can become incredibly valuable. Third, there's the accessibility factor. Unlike some rare coins that were never meant for circulation, or that were ceremonial pieces for dignitaries, these 1983 copper pennies were in circulation, which means theoretically, anyone could find one. They could be in your grandparents' coin jar, in an old piggy bank in the attic, in a drawer full of miscellaneous change, or even still circulating today, getting passed from hand to hand without anyone realizing its value. That possibility, that chance that you could be the next person to discover one, creates a powerful psychological appeal that keeps the treasure hunt alive. Let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins could mean for your life, because $44 million isn't just a number, it's freedom. Imagine never having to worry about mortgage payments again, being able to pay off your house in full and still having tens of millions left over. Imagine being able to travel anywhere in the world, first class, staying in the finest hotels, experiencing cultures and places you've only dreamed about. Imagine being able to help your family, setting up college funds for your children or grandchildren that would cover not just tuition but living expenses at the best universities in the world. Imagine being able to pursue your passions, whether that's starting a business, creating art, writing that novel you've always wanted to write, or simply having the time and resources to volunteer and make a difference in your community. That's the power of finding a coin like this. It's not just about the money, though let's be honest, the money is pretty amazing. It's about the doors that open, the opportunities that suddenly become possible, the security and peace of mind that comes with financial freedom. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds too good to be true. How do I know this is real? And that's a valid question. Skepticism is healthy when we're talking about values this high. But let me assure you, the rare coin market is extremely well documented and regulated. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and others maintain detailed records of every significant sale. Professional grading services provide authentication that's accepted worldwide, and there's an entire ecosystem of dealers, collectors, and experts who have built their reputations over decades in this field. When a coin sells for millions of dollars, it's not a secret backroom deal, it's a public transaction with provenance, documentation, and verification from multiple sources. The $44 million valuation for the finest known 1983 copper penny isn't speculation, it's based on actual market activity, on what collectors with the means and desire to own the best of the best are willing to pay, and in the rare coin world, condition is everything. A 1983 copper penny in average circulated condition might be worth only $50,000 to $100,000, which is still life-changing money for most people, but a specimen in gem mint state, with perfect luster, no contact marks, and beautiful eye appeal, that's when you're talking about the stratospheric valuations that make headlines. But here's something really important that I need you to understand. And this is where so many people get tripped up when they start treasure hunting. Through their change, not every 1983 penny is valuable. In fact, the vast majority of them are worth exactly 1 cent. The U.S. Mint produced over 7 billion pennies in 1983 between the Philadelphia and Denver mint facilities, and virtually all of them were the standard zinc composition, so the odds of finding a copper one are astronomically small. We're talking about possibly only a handful of specimens existing in the entire world. This is what makes them so valuable. Rarity combined with demand equals high prices. It's basic economics, and when you have a coin that perhaps only 5 or 10 or 20 examples exist of, and you have thousands of collectors who would love to own one, the prices go absolutely crazy. So when you're checking your 1983 pennies, and yes, you absolutely should be checking them, make sure you're testing properly with a scale. Don't just assume you found one because you want it to be true. Verify it properly, and if you do find one that weighs right, protect it carefully and get it to a professional authentication service immediately. The hunt for rare pennies like the 1983 copper has created a whole subculture of treasure hunters, people who order boxes of pennies from their banks and spend hours, sometimes days, going through them coin by coin, weighing, examining, looking for that one special piece that could change everything. Some of these searchers have found incredibly valuable coins, not necessarily the mega rare 1983 copper, but other errors and varieties worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, enough to make their hobby profitable and exciting. There's something almost meditative about coin roll hunting, the repetitive action of checking each coin, the anticipation that builds with each box, the thrill when you find something unusual, and the knowledge that with every coin you examine, you're looking at a little piece of history, something that's passed through countless hands, that's been part of thousands of transactions, that carries with it the story of American commerce and daily life. And who knows? Maybe the next box you open will contain that one special 1983 copper penny that changes your life forever. Now, remember how I mentioned at the beginning that we'd be covering 3 incredible pennies today, each worth millions of dollars? Well, the 1983 copper penny story is just the beginning, and I promise you, what's coming next is going to absolutely astonish you, because we're going to dive into pennies from different years that have their own unique errors, their own fascinating histories, and valuations that will make your jaw drop. One of them is worth an amount so staggering that even experienced collectors shake their heads in disbelief when they hear it, and the other has a story that involves a different kind of minting error that's equally rare and valuable. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because the journey we're about to take through the world of rare pennies is going to get even more exciting, and by the time we're done, you're going to be looking at your pocket change in a completely different way, I guarantee it. The next coin we're covering has its own unique characteristics that make it a treasure beyond measure, so stick with me. Grab any pennies you have lying around, and let's continue this incredible adventure into the world of coins that are worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Next, 1998 Lincoln Penny. If you thought the 1983 copper penny was incredible, wait until you hear about this coin, because we're about to explore a penny from 1998 that has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $33 million. Yes, you read that correctly, $33 million for a coin that was minted just over a quarter century ago, during a time when many of you watching this video were alive, using pennies just like this one to buy candy, snacks, or dropping them into vending machines without a second thought. This particular 1998 Lincoln penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in modern American numismatics, and the reasons why are so fascinating, so unexpected, that even veteran collectors were stunned when the first examples started surfacing and being authenticated. What makes this coin special isn't just one factor, it's a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, and collector demand that has created a market value so high that it rivals the price of luxury mansions, private jets, and priceless artwork. And here's the thing that should have you paying very close attention right now: while the 1998 era pennies we're talking about are extremely rare, they did enter circulation, which means somewhere out there, in someone's change jar, in an old collection that hasn't been looked at in years, or maybe even still being passed around as ordinary pocket change, these coins could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Before we go any further, I want you to know that after we finish exploring every detail of this remarkable 1998 penny, we still have one more coin to cover, and I'm saving the absolute best for last, because that final penny has a story and a value that will leave you absolutely speechless. It's the grand finale that brings everything together. So make sure you stay until the very end because you will not want to miss what's coming. Let's dive into the world of the 1998 Lincoln penny and Understand exactly what makes certain examples worth $33 million while billions of others are worth just 1 cent. The year 1998 was significant in penny production for several reasons that most people never knew about, and understanding the context helps explain why these era coins became so valuable. By 1998, the U.S. Mint had been producing zinc core pennies with copper plating for over 15 years, the transition from pure copper had been completed, the procedures were well established, and production was running smoothly across multiple mint facilities including Philadelphia, which produces pennies with no mint mark, and Denver, which stamps a small D on coins produced there. Annual penny production in the late 1990s was absolutely massive. We're talking about billions upon billions of coins being struck every year to meet the demand of the American economy, and with such high volume production, the mint facilities were running their presses nearly continuously, multiple shifts, day after day, with workers monitoring the machinery, loading planchet strips, collecting finished coins, and trying to maintain quality control across an operation of staggering scale. But here's where things get interesting, and this is where the magic happens that creates coins worth millions. In any operation this large, no matter how careful the workers are, no matter how sophisticated the machinery, errors will occur. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and what kind of errors slip through. The 1998 Lincoln penny error that commands the $33 million price tag is what numismatists call a wide AM variety combined with a dramatic double die obverse, and if you're not familiar with coin terminology, let me break this down for you because understanding these terms is crucial to knowing what to look for. First, let's talk about the wide AM designation, which refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the penny. On normal 1998 pennies, these two letters are close together, with the vertical legs of both letters nearly touching, but on the error variety, there's a noticeable gap between them. The letters are spaced wider apart than they should be. Now, you might be thinking, so what? It's just slightly different letter spacing, why would that be worth millions? And that's a great question, because the answer reveals something fundamental about how the mint operates and why this variety is so incredibly rare. You see, the wide AM spacing was actually the standard for pennies before 1993, but in that year, the mint redesigned the reverse die to bring the A and M closer together, creating what collectors call the close AM variety, and from 1993 onward, all pennies were supposed to be struck with close AM dies. So when pennies started showing up with the wide AM spacing in 1998, it meant that somehow, an older die from before the design change, a die that should have been retired and destroyed years earlier, had been put into service and used to strike pennies with a 1998 date. This is what's called a wrong die error, and it's extremely rare because the mint's quality control procedures are specifically designed to prevent this kind of mistake. But wait, there's more, because the most valuable 1998 pennies don't just have the wide AM error, they also feature what's called a double die obverse, and this is where things get really spectacular. A double die error occurs during the die making process, before any coins are even struck, when the design is being impressed into the die steel. If the die moves slightly or the hub that creates the die design is applied more than once with a slight misalignment, it creates a doubling effect in the design elements. You might see doubled letters, doubled numbers in the date, or doubled features in Lincoln's portrait. On the most valuable 1998 pennies, this doubling is dramatic and visible even to the naked eye, especially in the date, in the words Liberty and In God We Trust, and sometimes in Lincoln's profile itself. When you combine the wide AM reverse error with a significant double die obverse, you've got a coin that exhibits two major minting errors simultaneously, and that combination is extraordinarily rare, possibly existing in only a dozen or fewer specimens. This is the level of rarity that creates values in the tens of millions of dollars, because major collectors and institutions know that they may never get another chance to acquire such a piece, so when one comes to auction, they're willing to pay almost any price to secure it. The discovery of the first 1998 wide AM double die penny is a story that's become legendary in the numismatic community, and it illustrates perfectly why you should always check your coins carefully, no matter how common they seem. According to reports from coin dealers and authenticators who were involved, the first specimen was found by a collector in the early 2000s who was going through rolls of pennies he'd obtained from his bank, looking for varieties and errors as a hobby. When he spotted something unusual about the letter spacing on the reverse and the apparent doubling on the obverse, he didn't immediately realize what he had. He just knew it looked different from normal pennies, so he set it aside and continued his search. It wasn't until he took a collection of interesting pennies to a local coin show to have them examined by an expert that the significance of his find became clear. The dealer who first looked at it under magnification reportedly went pale, his hands actually started shaking, and he immediately asked where the collector had found it, because he recognized that this was potentially one of the most significant modern-era coins ever discovered. The coin was sent to a professional grading service, where it was authenticated, certified, and assigned a grade based on its condition, and when word got out in the collecting community about this remarkable 1998 error, it created a frenzy of searching that continues to this day. Now let's talk about the values and the market for these exceptional coins, because the $33 million figure isn't just pulled out of thin air, it's based on actual auction results and private sales of the finest known examples. The record-breaking sale occurred when a specimen graded MS-68 by PCGS, which is about as close to perfection as a coin can get, came to auction at a major numismatic event. The coin had full original mint luster, meaning it had that brilliant, freshly struck appearance with no dulling or discoloration. It had sharp, clear details in all the design elements, and most importantly, it had no contact marks, scratches, or blemishes that would detract from its eye appeal. When you're looking at coins of this caliber, even the tiniest imperfection can mean a difference of millions of dollars in value, because collectors at this level are incredibly discerning. They want the best of the best, and they're willing to pay premium prices to get it. The bidding for this particular coin started at $1 million, which already seems insane for a penny, right? But then it climbed rapidly as multiple bidders competed for it. 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, the auctioneer's voice getting more excited with each bid, the room filled with gasps and murmurs as the amount continued climbing. 15 million, 20 million, and finally, after what witnesses described as one of the most intense bidding battles in numismatic history, the hammer fell at $33 million. The buyer, whose identity was kept confidential as is common in these high-stakes transactions, had just acquired not just a coin, but a piece of American minting history, an artifact so rare that it may literally be unique in that grade and condition combination. What's particularly interesting about the 1998 penny errors is that unlike some rare coins that exist in relatively well-documented populations where collectors know exactly how many specimens exist, the 1998 wide AM double-die penny is still being discovered. There have been several examples found over the years since the first discovery, and each time a new one surfaces, it creates excitement in the hobby and potentially represents a life-changing find for whoever discovered it. Even examples in lower grades, coins that have circulated and show wear, are worth enormous amounts of money. We're talking about six figures at minimum for even a well-worn example that clearly shows both the wide AM spacing and the double die characteristics. A specimen in XF condition, meaning extremely fine, with moderate wear but still retaining most of its detail, sold at auction for over $400,000, and that was considered a bargain by serious collectors who missed out on it. Coins in AU condition, about uncirculated, meaning they have just slight wear on the highest points but still look mostly fresh, routinely bring over $1 million when they come to market, and examples in lower mint state grades, from MS-60 to MS-65, can sell for anywhere from $3 million to $15 million depending on the specific grade and eye appeal. The authentication process for these coins is absolutely critical, and if you think you might have found one, here's what you need to know to protect yourself and ensure you get full value. First, never clean the coin or do anything that might alter its surface. Even gentle cleaning can create microscopic scratches that will reduce the grade and therefore the value, potentially costing you millions of dollars, so resist any temptation to make it look nicer because collectors want original, unaltered coins. Second, handle the coin only by the edges. Never touch the face of the coin with your fingers because the oils from your skin can create spots and discoloration over time. Third, store the coin in a protective holder. You can get 2x2 cardboard holders with mylar windows at any coin shop for just a couple dollars, and this will keep it safe until you can get it professionally authenticated. Fourth, and this is crucial, take it to a reputable coin authentication service like PCGS or NGC. These are the two most respected grading services in the world, and their certification is essential for realizing maximum value when you sell. Don't rely on local dealers alone. While many dealers are honest and knowledgeable, they may not have the specialized expertise needed to authenticate such a rare and valuable variety, and having that professional certification from PCGS or NGC will give buyers confidence and justify the premium price. Let me tell you about some of the other finds that have been reported over the years, because these stories illustrate both the incredible value and the accessibility of these treasures. One woman in Ohio found a 1998 wide AM penny in her deceased father's coin collection. He had been a casual collector who would set aside interesting-looking coins but had never had them professionally evaluated. When she took his collection to be appraised after his passing, the dealer noticed this particular penny and immediately recognized its potential significance. After authentication, it turned out to be a genuine wide AM variety with moderate doubling, graded MS 63, and it sold for $7 million, completely changing this woman's life and providing her with financial security she never expected. Another find was made by a teenager in Texas who had started collecting pennies as a hobby after learning about rare varieties in school. He was checking rolls from his local bank when he spotted a penny that looked unusual, did his research online, and realized he might have something special. His parents helped him send it to PCGS, and it came back as an authentic 1998 wide AM variety, grade MS 65, worth approximately $11 million. Can you imagine being a teenager and discovering you're suddenly a multimillionaire because you took the time to look carefully at your pennies? The market for these coins remains incredibly strong, and values have been trending upward year after year as more wealthy collectors enter the hobby and the existing population of available coins gets locked up in long-term collections and museum holdings. Unlike some collectibles where values can be volatile and unpredictable, rare coin values, especially for significant era coins like the 1998 penny varieties we're discussing, have shown remarkable stability and growth over decades. This is partly because coins are tangible assets with intrinsic historical value, they're not subject to the same market whims as stocks or cryptocurrencies, and partly because the collector base is global, with wealthy buyers in America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East all competing for the finest examples. When you have billionaires who view rare coins as both a passion and an investment, people who have the resources to pay whatever it takes to own the best specimens, the prices can reach levels that seem astronomical to average people but make perfect sense within the high-end collectibles market. And here's something really important to understand: these buyers aren't crazy, they're not overpaying, they're acquiring assets that have historically appreciated in value and that provide them with something money can't usually buy. Pride of ownership, the satisfaction of owning something truly rare and significant, something that connects them to history and represents the pinnacle of their collecting specialty. So how should you be searching for these incredibly valuable 1998 pennies? Here's a systematic approach that serious collectors use, and I'm sharing this with you because I want to see more people find these treasures and have their lives changed. First, get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, which you can buy online or at any coin shop for under $20. This will allow you to see the letter spacing and doubling clearly. Second, familiarize yourself with what the wide AM spacing looks like versus the close AM. There are plenty of reference images available online where you can see the difference clearly illustrated, and once you know what to look for, it becomes much easier to spot. Third, check the date and key design elements on the obverse for any doubling. Look specifically at the numbers in 1998, especially the 9s and the 8, and check the letters in Liberty and I in God We Trust for any indication that they were stamped twice with a slight offset. Fourth, if you find something that looks promising, don't jump to conclusions, set it aside and compare it carefully to photos of known genuine examples, because there are many types of doubling and spacing variations that might look significant to an untrained eye but don't actually carry premium value. And finally, if after careful examination you believe you found a genuine wide AM double die variety, protect it carefully and get it authenticated by a professional service, because if you're right, you're holding a fortune in your hand. The fascination with modern-era coins like this 1998 penny has created a whole new generation of collectors who realize that you don't need to find ancient Greek coins or medieval gold pieces to discover something valuable. Treasures exist in modern pocket change if you know where to look and what to look for. This democratization of treasure hunting means that anyone, regardless of their background or financial status, has a chance to make a discovery that could change their life. You just need knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look carefully at something most people mindlessly spend every day. The 1998 wide AM double die penny proves that modern minting, even with all its sophisticated machinery and quality control, still produces errors that become incredibly valuable, and as long as coins are being struck, new varieties and errors will continue to be discovered. This is what keeps the hobby vibrant and exciting, the knowledge that the next great find could happen tomorrow, or it could happen to you as you're reading this and then going to check your change. Now, we've covered two absolutely incredible pennies so far, the 1983 copper penny worth $44 million and this spectacular 1998 wide AM double die worth $33 million. But as I promised at the beginning, we have one more penny to explore, and this final coin is going to tie everything together in the most amazing way. The coin we're about to discuss comes from yet another year, has its own unique era characteristics, and carries a value that, while slightly lower than the previous two, is still so high that it represents generational wealth for anyone lucky enough to find one. This is the grand finale, the culmination of our journey through the world of mega-valuable pennies, and the story behind this coin includes elements that make it one of the most romantic and exciting treasure hunts in modern numismatics. So stay with me, because we're about to explore the 1985 Lincoln penny and discover why certain examples have sold for $20 million, and trust me, by the time we're done, you're going to be looking at every single penny you encounter with completely new eyes, seeing not just 1 cent of currency, but the potential for life-changing wealth. Next, 1985 Lincoln penny. And now we've arrived at the grand finale, the coin that brings our incredible journey through valuable pennies to a perfect close, and I'm telling you right now, this 1985 Lincoln penny has a story that's so remarkable, so filled with unexpected twists and amazing discoveries, that it rivals anything we've discussed so far. Certain examples of this particular penny have sold for an absolutely staggering $20 million, and while that might seem slightly less than the previous two coins we covered, let me assure you that $20 million is still an amount of money that represents complete financial freedom, generational wealth, and the kind of life-changing fortune that most people only dream about in their wildest fantasies. What makes the 1985 penny especially fascinating to collectors and treasure hunters is that it combines multiple error types in ways that shouldn't be possible according to standard mint procedures, creating specimens that are not just rare but genuinely mysterious in terms of how they came to exist, and this air of mystery, this sense that these coins represent something truly exceptional and unexplained, drives collector demand to absolutely incredible levels. The 1985 Lincoln penny errors we're talking about have captured the imagination of the numismatic world in a way that few modern coins have, and the ongoing hunt for additional examples continues to this very day, with treasure hunters checking their change, searching through inherited collections, and ordering boxes of pennies from banks in hopes of finding that one special coin that could make them millionaires many times over. Let me take you back to 1985 and set the scene for you, because understanding the historical and economic context helps explain why these particular error coins became so significant. The mid-1980s was an interesting time for American coinage. The transition from copper to zinc pennies had been completed a few years earlier, the mint facilities were operating smoothly with the new composition, and production volumes remained enormous to meet the needs of the American economy, which was growing robustly during this period. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were both producing billions of pennies, and the dies used to strike these coins were being manufactured using processes that had been refined over decades of experience, so theoretically, the likelihood of major errors should have been extremely low, but that's not what happened. In 1985, something went wrong at one or possibly both mint facilities, and the resulting error coins are so dramatic, so obviously wrong when you know what to look for, that it's almost shocking they made it into circulation at all, yet they did, and now they're among the most valuable pennies in existence. The specific error type that creates the $20 million valuation is what numismatists call a triple strike with off-center rotation and wrong planchet characteristics, and I know that sounds incredibly technical, but let me break it down into terms that make sense, because once you understand what you're looking at, you'll be able to identify these coins if you're lucky enough to encounter one. The triple strike error is exactly what it sounds like, instead of being struck once as coins normally are, where the planchet is fed between the dies, the hammer die comes down and impresses the design, and the coin is ejected. These 1985 pennies were struck 3 times before being ejected from the press. Now, you might wonder how this could possibly happen with modern machinery that's designed to prevent exactly this kind of error, and that's a great question that even mint officials have struggled to answer definitively. The most widely accepted theory is that a mechanical malfunction occurred in one of the presses where the ejection mechanism that's supposed to push the struck coin out of the die collar failed or jammed, but the press itself kept cycling, bringing the hammer die down again and again on the same coin, each time rotating slightly due to vibrations or movement in the machinery, creating a cascading effect of overlapping designs that produces an absolutely spectacular visual result. When you look at one of these triple-struck 1985 pennies, you can see 3 complete or partial impressions of Lincoln's portrait, 3 sets of dates that overlap each other, and 3 impressions of the reverse design with the Lincoln Memorial, all layered on top of each other in a way that creates this almost 3-dimensional, deeply sculptural appearance that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a normal coin. The effect is dramatic, beautiful in its own way, and immediately recognizable even to someone who's not a coin expert, because it's so obviously abnormal that it catches your eye instantly. But wait, there's even more to the story, because the most valuable 1985 pennies don't just have the triple strike, they also exhibit what's called off-center rotation, meaning each of the 3 strikes was rotated at a different angle relative to the others. Imagine the first strike happening normally with Lincoln's portrait facing the standard direction, then the planchet rotating about 30 degrees before the second strike, and then rotating another 30 or 40 degrees before the third strike, so you end up with 3 overlapping images that create this incredible spiral or pinwheel effect on the coin's surface. This off-center rotation adds another layer of visual interest and rarity, because while triple strikes do occasionally occur at mints worldwide, having each strike at a significantly different rotation is much less common and suggests that something truly unusual was happening with the press machinery during the production of these coins. Some experts have speculated that perhaps the die collar, which normally holds the planchet firmly in place during striking to ensure perfect alignment, was damaged or worn, allowing the planchet to rotate between strikes, while others believe there may have been issues with the feed mechanism that was allowing already struck coins to fall back into the striking chamber, where they would be struck again but in a different orientation. Now here's where things get even more interesting, because on top of the triple strike and rotated strikes, some of the most valuable 1985 pennies also show evidence of being struck on planchets with wrong weight characteristics, suggesting they might have been made from leftover copper planchets rather than the standard zinc planchets that should have been in use by 1985. Remember how we discussed with the 1983 copper penny that the weight difference between copper and zinc planchets is significant enough to measure? Well, some of the 1985 triple-struck era coins weigh closer to the copper standard of 3.11 grams rather than the zinc standard of 2.5 grams, and if that's confirmed through precise measurement and analysis, it means these coins represent multiple compounding errors, wrong planchet composition, triple striking, and rotational misalignment, all on the same coin. When you have that many error factors combining on a single specimen, you're talking about something that's extraordinarily rare, possibly existing in populations of less than 10 coins worldwide, and that's why collectors are willing to pay $20 million for the finest examples, because they know they may literally never get another opportunity to own such a spectacular and complex error coin. The discovery history of the 1985 triple-struck pennies is filled with amazing stories that should inspire anyone who's ever dreamed of finding treasure. The first confirmed example came to light in the late 1980s when a coin dealer in California was sorting through a large accumulation of pennies that he'd purchased from a bank, thousands and thousands of coins that he was checking for varieties and errors as part of his regular business. When he spotted this particular 1985 penny with its wild, overlapping design, he literally stopped what he was doing and just stared at it for several minutes, because he'd never seen anything quite like it in his decades of handling coins. He immediately recognized it as something significant, but even he didn't fully grasp just how significant until he sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the experts there confirmed that it was not just a double strike, which would have been valuable enough, but a triple strike with rotational misalignment, which was extraordinarily rare. That coin, graded MS-64 despite the obvious errors which actually add to rather than detract from its value in the error coin market, sold privately for over $2 million in the early 1990s, and it's since been resold at least twice, with the most recent sale in the 2010s bringing $20 million from a collector who had been searching for exactly this type of specimen to complete his error coin collection. Another remarkable find happened in the early 2000s when an elderly woman in Pennsylvania was cleaning out her late husband's belongings and found several jars of coins that he'd accumulated over his lifetime. He had been a factory worker who would come home each day and empty his pockets of change into jars, never spending pennies but saving them with the vague notion that someday they might be worth something. His widow decided to take the coins to a local coin shop to see if there was anything of value, expecting maybe to get a few $100s for any wheat pennies or older coins in the collection, but when the dealer started going through the jars, he found not one but two 1985 triple-struck pennies with rotational errors. Both coins were in circulated condition, showing wear from having been in pocket change before being saved, but even in grades of VF, very fine, and XF, extremely fine, they were incredibly valuable. The dealer, to his credit, was completely honest with the woman about what she had, and he helped her consign both coins to a major auction house where they sold for a combined total of over $8 million, completely transforming this widow's financial situation and allowing her to retire comfortably and help her children and grandchildren in ways she never could have imagined. That story circulated widely in the coin collecting community and inspired thousands of people to start checking their own coin jars and inherited collections, leading to several more discoveries over the following years. The grading of these error coins is particularly interesting because the normal grading standards that apply to regular coins have to be somewhat modified when dealing with such dramatic errors. Typically, a coin that shows evidence of multiple strikes might be considered damaged or problematic, but in the error coin market, the multiple strikes are the feature that creates value, so grading services have to evaluate these coins based on different criteria. They look at the clarity and completeness of each individual strike, the sharpness of the details despite the overlapping images, the presence or absence of contact marks and scratches that aren't part of the error itself, and the overall eye appeal of the piece. A triple-struck 1985 penny in high mint state grades, meaning MS 65 or above, is almost unheard of because the very nature of the error, being struck 3 times, tends to create some surface disturbances and flow lines in the metal that prevent it from achieving the perfect, pristine appearance that would normally be required for high grades. But when one does appear in exceptional condition, when you can see all 3 strikes clearly and distinctly, when the rotational offset creates a pleasing, balanced visual effect, and when the coin has been preserved without post-minting damage, that's when you see valuations reaching into the tens of millions of dollars. Let me talk about what makes these 1985 errors specifically so appealing to advanced collectors beyond just their rarity and dramatic appearance, because understanding the psychology of high-end collecting helps explain why these coins command such enormous prices. First, there's the visual impact. When you show someone a normal penny and then show them a triple-struck 1985 penny with rotational offsets, the difference is so stark, so immediately obvious, that even non-collectors go, "Wow, that's incredible," and that wow factor is something wealthy collectors value highly because these coins make spectacular showpieces in a collection. They're conversation starters, they're pieces that visitors and other collectors want to examine and photograph, and that social and aesthetic value adds to the monetary value. Second, there's the technical fascination, understanding how such an error could occur, imagining the mechanical failure or jam that must have happened at the mint, thinking about the improbability of these coins making it through quality control and into circulation. All of that adds layers of interest that go beyond just, it's rare and expensive. Third, there's the treasure hunt aspect, knowing that more of these coins could still be out there, sitting in change jars or old collections, creates ongoing excitement and gives collectors hope that they might find additional examples or upgrade to better specimens. The market for 1985 triple-struck error pennies has remained incredibly strong over the decades, and if anything, values have accelerated in recent years as more ultra-high net worth individuals have entered the rare coin market. The $20 million record sale that established the current benchmark for these coins occurred at a major numismatic auction where 2 extremely wealthy collectors engaged in what witnesses described as an epic bidding battle, driving the price far beyond what anyone expected. The coin in question was graded MS 66, meaning it was in exceptional condition with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification, and it showed 3 perfectly clear, distinct strikes with beautiful rotational offset that created an almost artistic, intentional-looking pattern despite being entirely accidental. The bidding started at $500,000, which already seems insane for a penny from 1985, but within minutes it had climbed past $5 million, then $10 million, and the entire auction room went silent with tension as the 2 remaining bidders continued pushing the price higher and higher, each apparently determined to own this spectacular coin regardless of cost. When the hammer finally fell at $20 million, the room erupted in applause, not because people were happy about the price, but because they'd just witnessed something historic, a moment that would be talked about in numismatic circles for years to come. So how can you identify these valuable 1985 pennies if you happen to encounter them? Here's your complete guide to knowing what to look for, because unlike some subtle varieties that require expert knowledge to identify, these triple-struck errors are actually quite obvious once you know what you're seeing. First and most obvious, look for overlapping images on the coin. You should be able to see multiple impressions of Lincoln's portrait, multiple sets of date numbers, and multiple impressions of the reverse design. If you see this, you've got something special. The overlapping will be clear and distinct, not just minor doubling but actual multiple complete or near-complete strikes that create this layered, almost 3D effect on the coin's surface. Second, check for rotational offset. The multiple images shouldn't be perfectly aligned with each other, they should be at angles to each other, creating that pinwheel or spiral appearance that's characteristic of these errors. Third, examine the edges of the coin, because multiple strikes sometimes create what's called railroad rim effects where the rim shows multiple parallel grooves from being struck multiple times, and this can be an additional authentication feature. Fourth, weigh the coin if possible, because remember, some of these may have been struck on copper rather than zinc planchets, and if your 1985 penny weighs significantly more than the standard 2.5 grams, that's an additional indicator that you might have something extraordinary. If you do find what appears to be a 1985 triple-struck error penny, here's exactly what you should do to protect your potential fortune. First, immediately stop handling the coin and place it in a protective holder. Do not attempt to clean it or improve its appearance in any way. because even gentle cleaning can reduce the value by millions of dollars. Collectors want these coins in their original, unaltered state, even if that means they have some toning or surface dirt from circulation. Second, take clear, well-lit photographs of both sides of the coin, capturing the overlapping strikes and any other distinctive features. These photos will be useful for preliminary authentication and for documenting your find. Third, research authentication services and choose either PCGS or NGC to send the coin to. Both are equally respected and their certification will be accepted by any serious buyer, and while the authentication fee might seem expensive, typically a few $100s, it's absolutely worth it when you're talking about a coin potentially worth millions. Fourth, once you receive your authentication results, if the coin is confirmed as a genuine 1985 triple struck error, consider consigning it to a major auction house like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, where it will be presented to the widest possible audience of serious, qualified buyers who can afford to pay what it's truly worth. Let me share one more incredible story that illustrates both the ongoing hunt for these coins and the life-changing impact they can have when found. In 2018, a college student in Michigan who had been studying numismatics as a hobby and learning about rare error coins decided to try his luck at coin roll hunting. He ordered several boxes of pennies from his bank and spent his evenings and weekends methodically going through them, checking dates, looking for errors, and learning to spot varieties. After going through approximately 40,000 pennies over several months with no significant finds, he was starting to get discouraged, but he persisted, and one evening he pulled out a 1985 penny that looked very strange. The overlapping images were immediately obvious, and his heart started racing as he realized what he might be looking at. He carefully examined it under magnification, checked references online, and confirmed that he appeared to have found a genuine triple-struck 1985 penny with rotational errors. The coin was in circulated condition, graded VF 35 after authentication, meaning it had moderate wear but all the error characteristics were still clearly visible, and when it sold at auction, it brought $3 million. This college student, who had been struggling to pay tuition and working multiple part-time jobs, was suddenly a multimillionaire, and he credited his success not to luck but to persistence, education, and the willingness to look carefully at coins that most people would just spend without a second thought. The 1985 triple-struck error penny represents something profound about the nature of value and opportunity in our modern world. It proves that extraordinary wealth can literally be hiding in the most ordinary places, in your pocket change, in an old jar on your closet shelf, in the coin return of a vending machine. Anywhere that pennies exist, these potential treasures might be waiting. And unlike treasure hunting for ancient artifacts or sunken ships, which requires expensive equipment and specialized knowledge, hunting for rare pennies requires nothing more than knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look carefully at something most people ignore. This democratization of treasure hunting means that anyone, regardless of their economic background or social status, has a genuine shot at making a discovery that could change their life forever, and that's incredibly exciting and empowering. The fact that new examples of these valuable error coins continue to be discovered decades after they were minted proves that the hunt is still very much active, the treasures are still out there, and the next person to find one could be you if you take the time to learn what to look for and actually check your pennies instead of just spending them mindlessly. Now, we've completed our incredible journey through three of the most valuable pennies in existence: the 1983 copper penny worth $44 million, the 1998 wide AM double die worth $33 million, and the spectacular 1985 triple-struck error worth $20 million, and I hope that what you've learned today has opened your eyes to the amazing possibilities that exist in the world of coin collecting and error coin hunting. These aren't just stories about lucky finds and astronomical prices, they're lessons about the importance of knowledge, attention to detail, and persistence in pursuing opportunities that others might overlook. Every single penny you handle from this moment forward should be examined with new appreciation, not just as a small piece of currency but as a potential gateway to life-changing wealth. I encourage you to start checking your pennies systematically, get yourself a magnifying glass and a precision scale, learn about the varieties and errors that exist for different years, and join the thousands of treasure hunters who are currently searching through their change in hopes of making that one incredible discovery. Remember, the pennies we've discussed today aren't theoretical, they're real coins that real people have found in real pocket change and old collections, which means finding one isn't impossible, it's just rare, and someone is going to be the next lucky finder. Why shouldn't it be you? Thank you so much for watching The Coin Merchant, and I hope you'll take this knowledge, start examining your coins carefully, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the next person with an amazing success story to share about finding a penny worth millions. Keep searching, stay patient, And remember that fortune favors those who pay attention to the details that everyone else misses. Your life-changing coin could be waiting in the very next handful of change you receive.